When you think of cities that are centers for creativity, New York, Los Angeles, or even Austin, Texas might come to mind. But why not Des Moines? When you stop to think about it, Des Moines has an incredibly vibrant arts scene. From the Civic Center to the Arts Center or the Botanical Garden, arts and culture is alive and well in central Iowa. But if you're a local artisan, where do you go to find an affordable space to develop and produce your creations? That's where Mainframe Studios enters the picture. Mainframe Studios is a nonprofit organization located on Keogh Way in downtown Des Moines. This space is a 36-year-old 5-story building that was originally a telephone company data center. Upon reopening in late 2017, Mainframe included 75 shareable studios on 3 of the 5 floors. Another floor of artists has recently finished construction, and now Mainframe is home to more than 131 creative spaces.
Yeah, so we're sitting here in the recording studio that I designed and helped to build. I record a wide variety of artists and try to call back practically everybody that inquires, right? And it kind of spans the gamut from R&B to jazz to Christian artists, soloists through groups. Mostly soloists I've been calling since Christmas time, and that's been keeping me really busy. In fact, there was 5 different R&B artists in this room this week alone. Well, I don't know if you've seen it, but you should definitely check out a local group called Vox Infinitus. I helped them with a project just a year plus ago. So out on YouTube, they've got a custom arrangement of a song. It was in the movie The Greatest Showman, and I did a custom deal with them. So I actually recorded them on site in a church and mic'd all of their 9 members individually, and then spent quite a bit of time mixing that down, and it turned out really great. Well, I hit it off with Chiffon, the landlord, back when they were just drawing up the original blueprints for how these different artist spaces chop up on 4th floor. I really appreciate her vision for kind of elevating artists and artist potential and just expectations of what you'd come to expect when you come to Des Moines and come in such a variety of arts type of establishment. And so I'm trying to fulfill that on the music excellence and audio quality piece. It's physically a great building too, because it's made out of concrete in the 70s, which they just don't make buildings like that anymore. So while I did a lot of soundproofing inside of the concrete shell that I started with, it's a great place to start. A little bit more robust than a stick frame, building you might start with from scratch today. So I grew up heavily steeped in jazz band and show choir, musicals and speech kind of offerings. I just had a great, rich experience growing up just north of here in Humboldt, Iowa. And I also had kind of a math and science itch to scratch. So I kind of let that drive and went ahead and went to Iowa State for electrical engineering. And that kind of drove, my first career choice. I worked for a couple places like Boeing and John Deere, got married and helped raise a family. And in my spare time, I was pretty committed to running live sound for a number of different churches. And that spanned the last 25 years. And so that was really kind of grew into a passion where it kind of solidified what I wanted to do one day when they ask you that, right? was I love helping people refine their sound and take their music to a level that they didn't think that they could sound like. And the only challenge with running live shows is they're once and done. Back then when I started, there was no streaming, and we weren't gonna work a lot in any post-production capacity for most churches that I worked with anyway. And so this was always the ultimate dream, was to apply this kind of technology to music and audio excellence, but also get the chance to do it in a refined way where the final product is the best that time and money can put into it. We recorded just a little bit of Tone the Move Maker. He's actually a tenant downstairs with a clothing business, but he's also got a lot of rhythm and music in him, and so helping him track a little vocal for a promotional video he's putting together. Yeah, if you want to get into audio production, or probably video production is almost as popular really these days. There are more education opportunities than in the early 90s when I was in college, right? But they're not cheap, and they are very narrowly focused. Not saying you shouldn't pursue that, but you should be a little careful, right? If an offering is purely online, and you don't come out the other end of it with industry contacts and the kind of hands-on, I actually heard what these knobs do when I'm in a room like this, then it's going to be tricky to sell yourself on that kind of first job. So on top of potentially getting some education specific to audio production, run sound for a group that needs your help. You may or may not get paid for it, but you will learn on the fly, and have to figure some stuff out about signal routing and cabling and fixing stuff and basic EQ and compression, and do it for real, because at the end of the day, the textbook education won't completely cut it. If I have somebody in here helping me make production decisions, it's as much about applying the technology as it is about listening critically to where we're at and where we want to go with somebody's voice or the blend of these instruments and putting these things together and stitching together tracks, right? It's a very audible, experiential thing that you have to continually get more and more practice at, and that should light you up at the end of the day. If that doesn't turn you on, why, it's just pushing buttons potentially. Kind of in a nutshell, Bob, just decide and get after it. Just go for it. Now, I don't mean go for it and in this kind of jump in the pool with your clothes on, because that's not how I'm wired. But personally, in a little bit more of a plan, not a crazy, super risky way, I went for it and left a stable career working for somebody else to do what I've always dreamt of doing, and that's engineer in a nice quality studio that I got to help design and build, and here we are. L-O-V-E-M-E, baby.